Hey guys, this is Johnny, and in this video I'm going to create a stance system for my Godot 4 third-person controller demo. The character will have 4 different stances: upright, stealth, crouch and prone, and these stances will have their own set of movement states. I'll start by creating a new script that extends node and has a class name of stance. This class will have its own 4 movement states like this. And here under the plain node, I'm going to add 4 nodes with the stance script attached and organize them under this node. Previously I had these 4 movement states, which I renamed here because they will be a part of the upright stance. And here I've created more movement states for the other stances. The stealth stance only has these 2 states, as I want the player to change to the upright stance whenever I sprint during the stealth stance. But here I want the crouch and prone stances to have 2 different speeds of motion, so that's why there are sprint and walk states. Here you can see I've attached the stand, walk, run and sprint states for the upright stance. For the stealth stance, the player will use the data from walk state for walk, run and sprint states. For crouch stance, the walk and run state are the same, and there is different movement state for sprint, where I'm using the same animation but with faster animation speed. I'll do the same thing for the prone stance. The stances also have their own colliders, so that when the player is crouching or crawling, the colliders are different so we can go through tight spaces like this. In the animation tree, I'm adding a new transition node here and naming it stance transition. I'll add 4 states here: upright, stealth, crouch and prone, and give it a crossfade time with a smooth curve. I'll rename the previous movement blend as upright movement blend, and I'll create a stealth movement blend where 0 is stealth idle and 1 is stealth walk. Similarly for crouch, 0 is crouch idle and 1 is crouch walk, and I'm going to repeat the same thing for the prone. In the player script, I added some modifications here for better readability. These were named set movement state and set movement direction before. Here in the input function, I modified this line, which was like this before, so that the movement state signal is not getting fired too many times, as there are twins on the other scripts where the function is connected with the signal. I also moved this block from the physics process to the input function as it made more sense this way. I created this function to emit the signal, which I was previously doing directly here, but now they call the function to set the movement state. Here in the stances dictionary, I'm holding the stance names as keys and nodes as values. The set movement state function reads the current stance and finds the correct movement state data from the stance and then emits the data with the signal. In the input map, I'm setting the upright key as space, as I want the player to go to the upright stance from the other stances like crouch without jumping. For the stealth stance, I'll use F, and for crouch and prone, I'll use C and V. Here in the input function, I'm scanning the names of the stances, and if any of them matches the input action name, the set stance function will get called, which takes the name of the stance as a string parameter. We also need to make sure the player is on floor, otherwise you can go to crouch or prone state while being in the air, which is not desired. I'm adding these lines for the jump action, so if the player is currently not in the higher stances, pressing jump will change the stance to upright and cancel the jump. I'm also adding these 2 lines here, so if the player is in stealth stance, if we try to sprint, the current stance is immediately changed to the upright stance. In the set stance function, here is a temporary variable to hold the name of the next stance. I'm setting it to upright if the user presses the current stance button, so pressing the same button twice makes the player go to the upright stance. Else I'm gonna set it to the stance name received as parameter. Then I'm gonna disable the collider of the current stance, change the current stance name, then enable the collider of the new stance. This way we can make some areas of the level accessible only with crouch or prone. Here I'm gonna meet the change stance signal and call the set movement state function to get the movement state data from the new stance. In the animation controller script, the change stance signal from the player script is connected with this function where I'm taking the name of the stance and setting it to the transition node of the animation tree. I'm also caching the name here so I can change the movement blend of the current stance in this function. This way I can set the values of the respective stances, so with the movement states being changed, I can make sure the movement animation of the current stance is also being changed. In the camera controller script, the change stance signal from the player script is connected with this function where the camera height is taken from the stance. In the ready function, I made the cam root node top level, and in the physics process, I'm lerping the position of the cam root node, which makes it follow the player position smoothly. I'm also lerping this position offset variable to smoothly change the height of the cam root node. So if the player is going to crouch or prone, the camera position gets lower. To prevent the player from getting up from a lower stance if there is a collision, I'm gonna add some raycast to check if the stance is being blocked. In the stance script, the isBlocked function returns true if the raycast is not null and it is colliding. In the player script, I'll add a function to check if the current stance is being blocked. So here in the set stance function, I'll check if the next stance is being blocked, and if it is, I'll simply return so we cannot go to the next stance. In the input function, if the user is pressing jump while being in the lower stances, the stance is being changed to the upright stance, so we also need to check if the upright stance is blocked here. So you can see, if I go into a space designed for crouching, I can go to prone, but I cannot get up as the raycast of the upright stance is colliding. Same goes for the prone state, I cannot get up to the crouch stance or the upright stance. You can also see that I can use the sprint state for the prone and crouch, but not for the stealth stance, as I added these two lines in the player script. So this way you can create a lot of variations for the player movement.